There's a guy, I think early 20th century or maybe late 19th century, I forget. His name is Thomas Cole, and he has these 4 paintings called The Voyage of Life. So let me first give you a very, very quick and brief summation of what life is all about. And each stage creates a different set of meanings and disappointments and regrets and ambitions. And then as you move to the second or the third or the fourth painting, you look back and you realize that most of the things you have done is completely irrelevant because they're no longer sufficient to answer the dilemmas of where you are. The first painting, of course, is called Childhood. There is this tiny little boat that's coming out of this cave. When you look inside the cave, it's dark. You can't see anything. The sky is very, very dark and very, very gloomy. The cave itself is quite rocky on the top. There is nothing living on the rocks. There is only one tree, but that's dead, and the trunk is broken. But you look at the boat itself, it's kind of just sitting on this water. The water is calm. Inside the boat, it's just filled with grass and greens and flowers. And there's an angel that is at the front of this boat. And this infant is naked and very, very, very happy. پاک از عدم آمدیم و ناپاک شدیم آسوده برآمدیم و غمناک شدیم. That all of us came into life clean and pure and naked, without any shame, without any regret, without any remorse, without any pain, really. But we left having become completely corrupted. We have so much poison inside us. We were born into this world with calm and peace and comfort, and we left with anxiety, frustration, dread, and fear. That's Omar Khayyam, the Persian mathematician, astronomer, Sufi poet. And it's an interesting thing where you can kind of summon up the entirety of life by just a couple of lines. At any event, the truth is, when you look inside the cave, it's far too dark. You can't see anything. There are no answers. There are no flashlights. There is no sun. There is nothing that's illuminating. We have no idea. Everything is just very, very confusing. And eventually, you just kind of give up. You try religion. You say, yes, God created me. I have a soul. My job is to go back to paradise. But there comes a point where you realize that, yeah, God may be there, you may have a soul, but life is really far too demanding. It just poisons your day, poisons your psyche, poisons your emotions, your body on a daily basis. You have no time for God. You have no time for prayer. And even if you were to pray, you speak to God, but there is no reply, and eventually you'll just give up. You know, it's no different than your boyfriend or your girlfriend calling you, or you call them and they don't reply. You call them again. They don't pick up, they don't reply, and after a few times you just give up. That's life. You just give up after a while. And I think the child on this tiny little boat is happy because doesn't reflect, doesn't look at the sky to see how gloomy it is, doesn't turn around to look inside the cave to see how dark it is, doesn't look inside the boat to realize that he or she is really just there by him or herself. There is no one else in life. You come alone, you come naked, you leave alone, and you leave naked. The child is in the cradle of ignorance, which is really a blessing. As long as you don't know, there is no pain. As long as you don't think, as long as you don't reflect, there are no questions to be asked. And therefore, there are no existential dreads. You have no yearning. But you see, in infancy, hopefully, if you come out of your mother and you have relatively decent parents, the waters are calm. You cry and your mom just comes to you, runs to you. Your dad comes home and you say, I saw this toy on TV on this ad. Can we go to Target and get it? You say, yes. And they will tolerate your, temper tantrums very calmly, quietly. And there is something about being a child. You're just governed by intuition, by instinct. And like a nice little animal, no one needs to tell you what to do, where to go. No one forces you to like broccoli or spinach. Your taste buds are like the kingdom of God. They will tell you what something is good when something is bad. And you're just in the cradle of curiosity. The oven is hot, but you've been in the Garden of Eden. That's what infancy is. You have never experienced pain. You don't really know what it means to have a skin that's burnt. So you just approach everything innocently, casually, nonchalantly. So if you want to know why people sometimes are happy, but not temperamentally, in other words, they're not born to be positive, their temperament is not one of optimism, but they're just casual, they're nonchalant, they're indifferent, they're happy. It's because they haven't really grown, they haven't really experienced pain, and if they have, they always look the other way. And just in case you go somewhere and you realize that people have zero shame to them, it's not because they're innocent, it's not because they're childlike, it's because they're just stupid. That they have no moral guidelines within, there is no GPS, nothing protects them. They're like Snoop Dogg, who's willing to go on Jimmy Kimmel completely high. He doesn't care if a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old is watching, and there he is promoting, encouraging young people to smoke, to get high, and then get addicted by the time they're 10. There is nothing brave about that. There is nothing to be proud about that. So that's infancy, a life that's calm and a life that's governed by your intuition and instinct. And just in case you have a bad, negative experience, you forget very, very, very quickly. When your son or your daughter is 1 or 2 years of age, do an experiment. When he or she comes to you and says, "Dad, I want a hug," kick him really, really hard. No doubt your child will sit somewhat confused, perplexed, and then they'll begin to cry. Just wait. You'll be, of course, filled with regret and remorse and shame and guilt. You'd want to kill yourself for having done what you've done. But then just wait for the dust to settle, and then your child is no longer crying. Go to your child very, very quietly and gently and slowly and say, "You want to go to Target or somewhere and have a bucket of ice cream?" All of a sudden, they're happy. They jump on your lap as if you've never spanked them, you never slapped them. Part of it really has to do with their frontal lobe. It's not fully developed yet, so therefore their ability to store experiences, to have memories of things, it's not just there yet. The second painting is called Youth. It's something that happens to all of us, unfortunately. For some, it happens organically. For some, it's manufactured. So let me tell you the difference between something that happens organically versus something that is manufactured. Imagine that when you're born, you see both your mom and your dad, and you continue to see them up to the age 15 or 16. As my good friend Sigmund Freud would say, from the age 0 to about 10, 11, maybe 6 or 7, you look at your parents as your heroes. You scream, they come to your aid. You're hungry, they make you food. You have any needs, they'll do their best to provide those things to you. But then one day you go to them and you say, "Dad, why was I born? How was I born?" And you realize for the first time your parents can't give you an answer that will satisfy you. And you'll just leave your mom or your dad, you go to the bedroom and you say, "I love my dad, but he didn't do a good job answering my question." And that's the first crack in your psychology, in your relationship with your father. Maybe my father doesn't know everything out there. And so as you mature and as you grow psychologically, something happens to you. Very much if you've read Genesis in the Old Testament, God looks at Abraham and says, "Abraham, you've been around your parents long enough. Leave them. Get married, have children, build your own family. Experience what it means to be a man, what it means to be a husband, what it means to be a father. Cut the umbilical cord. Be autonomous, be independent." That's where wisdom lies. Experience. Life will crush you. And in you being crushed, you will learn how to deal with it. So at the age of 15 or 16 or 17, if nothing traumatic has happened to you, to your psyche, you look at your parents and you say, "Mom, Dad, I think I want to move to New York. I want to go to NYU, have my own apartment, have my own friends, do my own things. I'm a man now," so you say and think. It's when you walk away from your parents, but it happens organically. Sure, there are parts that are connected to the world of advertisement, peer pressure, the culture in which you live. If you come from my culture, you don't leave your parents. You're with your parents until you get married. And then when you get married, then you leave them. You go next door. And then every month you ask them for money. And then you say, "Where is my car? You promised to buy me a car and a house and a this." And the nice thing about that is when your parents get old and sick, there is no need for nursing homes. You just take care of them. The one that is manufactured, unorganic, unpleasant, profoundly painful, and it's like cancer that lives inside you. You've been traumatized. And whenever you have trauma inside you, it's like everything you touch withers, decays, and dies. It's like you've always had a bad relationship with your parents, but now you're 30, you want to have a companion, but you never really learned how to be social, how to be nice, how to be decent, how to be in any relationship. So you crap on everything. That's what I mean by you destroying everything that comes your way. And at the age of 40, you can no longer tolerate the sort of a creep you've turned into. You say, I just need to go to therapy. And your poor therapist, if he or she is any good, they have to spend the next 20 years figuring out what the knots are inside you. And very cleverly, should you be in the right place to listen, to hear, and then perhaps to apply, what you've been listening and hearing, then maybe you can kind of get over your stuff. Otherwise, you're stuck for life. So the unorganic, the manufactured, you walking away is you realize that your mom is never available, your father is never available, and you have to do your own stuff. You have to cook for yourself, you have to clean yourself, you have to attend to your own needs. And then you realize at the age of 5, you have been forced into independence. Not because you know what it is, you've just been forced into it. At the age of 5, you have to figure out why you feel angry, why you feel depressed, why you're lonely, why no one cooks for you, why no one cleans for you, why you were born if your parents didn't really want you. Why are you here? That's too much on the shoulders of a 5-year-old. So on the second painting, what you have is called youth. Like all young people, they drive everyone away. This kid looks at the angel and says, I know, at times you were guiding my life. I no longer need you. I can think now. I know what life is all about. I can understand the complexities of life. And I have a beautiful toolbox with lots of tools. Just in case life throws me an event that confuses me, I have tools. Just in case I suffer from loss, I have tools. And the angel, I suppose, pleads with this young man, let me be on the boat. I'll be in the background, fly in the wall. Just in case you got stuck, I'll help you. The guy says no. But you see, all young people have dreams and hopes, and they're blinded by dreams and hopes. They get drunk by dreams and hopes. All young people are condemned to have hope and dreams and ambitions, but they've never been tested by time. They've never been tested by life. And so when someone tries to educate you, to refine the things you're pursuing, you'll say, no, Dad, you're a creep. Look at you. You have a father who's been a drunk, but he's trying to sober up. He sees you drinking. He comes to you and says, you know why my life is this way? Because I didn't have a father who would come to me and say, don't drink, don't smoke, stay in school. I never had a father figure. I'm a scumbag, he tells you. I know, but I've learned a few things, Don't drink. But you say, Dad, you're a creep. If you think you're wise, fix your own life. Don't try to fix mine. And that's the position of all young people. What this young man doesn't see is, if he was to look very closely at the flow of the river, it's no longer a straight path, it's winding. It's not very difficult to go to a party, see a very young, attractive thing out there, and just go to it. It's very easy. It's a linear line, point A to point B. But then things get a little confusing. You have feelings for him now. It gets more confusing. You have emotions now. You have fantasies now. Then, with a good amount of fear, you summon up the courage and you say, I love you. And he or she looks back and says, I love you too. You want to be roommates? Absolutely. Our love will withstand everything and anything. And then you become roomies. After a week or two, you realize things are not going so well. It's no longer a linear line. They're confusing. You got to do things that you've never thought about, never known. You have to overcome a good amount of addictions, bad habits, so that she doesn't scream at you or you don't scream at her. But you see, the reason why we don't see those winding roads, confusing roads, dreadful roads, is because if you look at the second painting, this young kid is filled with pride, hubris, arrogance. He has his fist clenched upwards, one leg forward. There is nothing that I cannot do. There are no mountains I cannot climb. And if you look further in the painting, there is this Taj Mahal, this temple, this paradise where all dreams come true. And I'm going to transfer to Berkeley, then I'm going to go to Yale, then I'm going to get a PhD, then I'm going to get a job, then I'm going to buy a house, I'm going to buy a car, then I'm going to buy a companion, then I'm going to buy a couple of kids, and then I'll buy happiness. Only if it was that simple. No one gets into a relationship to suffer a breakup, and they do. But you see, it's the temple that creates all these deceptions and illusions for us. And then comes a third painting. It's called Manhood. The sky is very, very, very dark, very violent. The waters are very, very, very rough. You see something about this third painting, about this stage in life where you didn't see in the first or the second paintings. His knees are bent. In the first painting, you have a kid who is happy. In the second painting, you have a kid who is ambitious and hopeful. In the third painting, you have a man who's broken. His knees are no longer strong enough to support him. They're bent. His back is bent. If you want to know why we pray, you find yourself in an event in life or a stage in life where you lose your reflective abilities. You no longer have answers. You no longer look to other people for answers. They have disappointed you, you have disappointed you, life has disappointed you, God has disappointed you, the Bible has disappointed you, you're on your own, and there is nothing you can do. And the boat is sinking. There are no angels to be found on this boat, You're all alone. And that's the thing you need to know about grief. In grief, you're always, always, always alone. For those of you who have had a parent pass, a sibling, a companion, if you go back in time, if you're able to stretch your memories all the way back to those moments, language fails you, everything fails you. The only thing you can do is either cry or laugh because you've just cried too much, and then tell nasty jokes. That's the only way you can cope. But something else happens in grief, when you go to a funeral and you see a mother wailing and screaming, or your father has passed, your mother has passed, or a sibling has passed, or a friend has passed, you kind of look at the situation and you say, this is really, really awful. And you thought that you can hold it together, but tears just flow downwards. You scream, you shout, but in the end you realize the best way you can express yourself is silence. You say nothing. And then you look at your mom and you say, Mom, it's okay. I know Dad has passed, but we're still here. So grief initially turns you outward to those who are grieving, very much like you. But then if you happen to be pushed by the world of reflection just a little, you say, my father just passed. Life spares no one. I too will one day pass. I too will one day get old. I too will one day get sick. If that is the case, what the hell happens to me? Who am I? What am I? What am I to do with the next few days of my life? Grief turns into sorrow. Sorrow forces you to internalize the experience. And once internalized, you begin to reflect. But reflection pushes you into this dark cave of the first painting. You try to look for answers, to solutions. None to be found. So you get depressed. And if you don't have a support system, that depression will turn chronic, i.e., it finds a way to get inside your soul. And then wherever you go, whatever you do, your soul touches those things. And you will turn life into death. That's what chronic depression does. It doesn't mean you don't have sunny days. You do, just once every month, for a few minutes. And then there is the fourth and final painting. It's called Old Age. You can no longer go back to the first painting to be innocent, to be nonchalant, unreflective, uncaring. You see too much, you know too much, you've gone through too much. and you can no longer find yourself in the second painting. You've lived enough to know what life does to your dreams. So like Aristotle, you choose the golden mean. I'm not going to be too happy, I'm not going to be too sad. I will continue to have dreams, but in my dreams now, it'll be half dark and half light. Some people get old in a really, really awful way. Some people get old in a really, really nice way. If life hasn't stolen all the nice things inside you, the ability to reflect, to be compassionate, to be decent, to have a good amount of integrity, self-reflection, examination, before you actually get to this old man in the fourth painting where he sits in this boat. His hair is gone, most. He has a long beard now, it's all gray. He no longer stands. That's not what old people do, they mostly sit. Their bodies can't do too much standing or too much walking. He sits, but the water is calm. The sky is still gloomy, but there are spots where you can see the sun coming out. The ray comes through. And you see doves flying around. And there are trees. So let me tell you what has happened to this fourth painting. Whoever this old man is profoundly lucky to be in that stage. This young kid one day knocks on Socrates' door some 3, 4, 5, 6, 10,000 years ago. And Socrates opens the door and this young man asks, "So Socrates, every single day you go to the classroom, you go to the market and you talk. You ramble about this and you ramble on about that. Why the hell do you talk so much? What is it that you do?" "I do philosophy." "What is the function of philosophy? Is it just to help us think? What is it? For us to become great orators so we can give great sermons, talk well?" "No," says Socrates. "So what is it that you want us to do?" "I talk to you," Socrates says, "for one reason." "What is that?" "So you can live well." But not because just to live well. Because at the end of every life awaits old age. And old age brings about sickness. My father-in-law, who passed a couple years ago at cancer, he was on his deathbed, moaning and groaning every single day. He refused to die. And so to kind of just give him a change of scenery, we put him on the wheelchair and we took him around the lake. When we came back, he started screaming and he pushed all of us out. Only a few days later when he calmed, he said, "For 70 years I was able to walk, to run, to jog, to eat, to do all sorts of things. Now I'm just laying in my bed. I can't even move, clean myself, take a bath. I can't do anything. And you take me out. And I see people who are able and waste their abilities. Things I want to do, but I no longer can. You thought that you would give me a scenery that would be positive. It turned my life upside down. I realized all the opportunities life gave me, but I missed. The only way that you can die well, like this old man in this fourth painting, is to live well. But you see, life is like the second painting. It's a winding road. Nothing is clear. We don't receive advice well. We don't receive wisdom well. And so you find yourself in a place where you look back and all you have is regrets. You have moments of sunshine, happiness. You said hello to your son, hello to your daughter. You were nice to your wife. But those qualities are becoming more and more rare as the days go by. Technology, capitalism, isolation, depression, divorce, abandonment, trauma, depression, you name it. And then there are a couple of angels coming down from the sky to take the soul of this old man. He is ready to die. And he dies well. He dies well because he's gone back to his childhood. He understands what it means to be an infant and to be happy and to be innocent, to be stupid. He understands what it means to be young and arrogant and hubris. He understands finally that he has no power over life. He can do the best he can. In the Greek world, there is this god that they believe in, goddess. Her name is Fortuna. You know, the Greeks were very lucky people. They didn't have a Jordan Peterson. They didn't have an Eckhart Tolle. They didn't have a Tony Robbins. What the Greeks knew that you and I don't is the following. You wake up in the morning and you can make all sorts of plans and you can think all sorts of things about yourself. But should the goddess Fortuna look down, and should she be in a strange mood, and should she desire to crap all over you on that particular day, that's your fate. You don't complain. You say, God gives and God taketh away. I woke up at 6 in a great mood, 6:15. It seems the gods have a different plan. Now you're in a crappy mood. And you say, oh God, how am I going to live out this day? 6:45, you're in a great mood. So the Greeks say, we're going to wing it. We'll do the best we can. They are the Taoists, you see. I will go where life takes me. I will make plans, but should those plans not pan out, I will do the best I can to deal with problems healthily, maturely.